I just love it. And I love seeing that. A number of years back, when I started seeing how people were going through their daily operations, everyday life, I realized that enough of us needed what I called then mental toughness. And that mental toughness grew into, now I started talking about emotional intelligence. And that emotional intelligence, by the way, I had not read it anywhere in any book. And so if you are an expert in that field and you find that I don't even use the terminologies that people use in school, that is me. This is a creation of meditation. These are things that I practice. So I'm hardly academic. I just speak. The intention of Live Your Dream, by the way, is always to make things more practicable. And we love the word practicable and simple. You see, they should be simple enough and you are able to put them into practice. So we avoid the academic angle of stuff. And so I started noticing that people needed what we called mental toughness. And mental toughness, in my own understanding, was an ability to take care of your mind and brave tough situations in life and still come up victorious. An ability to become resilient enough to be able to overcome the difficulties that people meet daily. Every man is besetted with difficulties. Every man, every woman, every person walking on earth has some level of difficulties that they are experiencing. So last week, and by the way, when I was going to give the other talk, it was in preparation for the elections that were coming. And now I can imagine what they are, the people who received the talk. I want to believe that they are better off handling themselves through this than the people who are green in that particular field. And so when every other time I talk to people, this particular week, lots of people have been online all the times, tweeting, trying to look for the latest and looking for hope from every angle. And so the topic of emotional investment popped into my mind. Why can't we talk about emotional investment? Now that the other week, we talked about how to choose leaders, which Mr. Carl was very gracious to take us through, and he will be coming a bit later within the year, in the coming months, to take us through the last section of that, which was about coping with changes, which are inevitable. Yeah, so we will expect him. And then we followed that with that particular discussion last week. And now we've reached a situation where there is a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety, a lot of uh, uncertainty. People don't eat enough. People are literally in labor. So this topic came into my mind, and now, having given that background, I don't know. Could somebody just tell me, when you saw this, what is in your mind? What do you expect us to be discussing? Yeah, emotional investment. What comes to your mind out of this? Someone can just respond, or you can unmute your audio, your video if possible, and you say something. Anyone would like to say a thing about investment, emotional investment? Yes, Georgina.
Okay, I would simply say investing your emotion where there is value, or what our rabbi said, do not throw your pearls to pigs. So putting your emotions where they will be valued.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that. And I love the example you're giving in the Bible that talks about throwing pearls to pigs. Yeah, pearls are precious things. Yeah, beautiful. Any other person would like to say something about the same? Emotional investment. Yes, what's in your mind? What would you expect?
Well, I would think when you talk about investment,
Mhm.
my perception would be investing. Okay, well, okay, putting your mind and thinking about bigger things, things that have value in your life and have an impact instead of thinking about thoughts and things that will not add value, things that will give you unnecessary stress, but investing in something that is of value. Like, for example, I would say, like, currently, what uh, Kenyans are currently going on, there is a lot of tension, and people are thinking now, who is going to be the next president? What will happen? And there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation. So for me, I would invest in that. I believe eventually we shall get a good leader, and whoever will emerge, um, whether the election will be rigged or not rigged, but I will just think that we'll have a better government, and life will go on well, and everything will eventually go well.
Thank you. Thank you. Putting your, somebody used to say, putting your mouth where your money is, or money where your mouth is. Yeah. But it's directing your emotions to be able to uh, achieve something. And I took the two words, and I know it's not really a new terminology out there. Most likely it's been discussed in different quarters. But there are two elements or two words into that topic. There is the emotion and then investment. And what we know about investment is we invest, we put something in order to get a reward. So in this case, the angle we are going to pick is how do we invest wisely our emotions? Yes, it's not we are investing with our emotions in the bank or buying stock or whatever. That angle also exists. And it's very rewarding if you are more educated, or let me say educated enough in this field of emotions. Emotions, if you don't know, rule the world. Emotions rule the world. And so there is that aspect of emotion and then the investment. And when we think of investment, we are thinking about putting something into a venture that is going to give us a reward, and possibly a bigger reward than what we put in. So how do we invest our emotions, or how do we choose to invest our emotions? The problem is most of us haven't learned that our emotions are investable, and that lots of the results that we see are results that come out of our emotions. It's said that human beings are actually spiritual beings going through human experiences. And what makes us human is really our emotions. Otherwise, we would be any other animal. We would be a cow, we would be maybe a tree, we would be any other. But it is our emotions that really make us human beings. If we become people who cannot feel any emotion, you don't feel any emotion of love, or anger, or sadness, or joy, all these other things, you cannot respond to emotions, then you've become more or less dead. You're like a tree. You see, you're like a cow or something. So what makes us human are our emotions. Now, here is the other thing, that our emotions, that word emotion has that part, motion. If you think of motion, you think of activity, you think of movement. And by the way, I'd like you to pick it from that angle, that these emotions literally produce motion in us. They produce activity, they produce action, they determine our activities. They determine what we are going to do next. And so if we do not learn how to appropriately align them or invest them, then we are likely to get the results that we do not want. We are not likely to reap the benefit of investing our emotions. So the question is, how do we invest our emotions? I'd like us to think of a bank account. A bank account where there is the deposit and there is withdrawal. When you deposit more than you withdraw, then you will always have some positive balance. When you withdraw more than you deposit, you are likely going to have an overdraft. If you have that facility, you know, not everyone can access overdraft depending on the type of account you are operating. Or you're going to always have some negative balance and you're always anxious and struggling. So if we think in that aspect and we think of books of accounts, including balance sheet and cash in, cash out and all that for people who are in business, how, therefore, should we invest our emotions? Somebody would like to speak?
Well, like you said, whenever we invest, we expect returns, and it's those returns that we reinvest and grow. Where there is motion, there is energy that puts that motion, you know, that activity to get going. So I would expect where I'm investing, and we talked of positivity and negativity, my returns are positive. So when you're talking of, and obviously when you're investing, okay, putting in maize, you expect to harvest maize. Putting in a lot of money, you expect to a lot of money in return, and emotions likewise. And therefore, I would expect when whatever emotions I put forward or I invest, I get back peace, joy, you know, love, blissfulness. Those are the things that I expect in return. And therefore, whatever that is going that I'm going to give out, it has to give me back the same thing. Like you're throwing the ball up, the same motion, it goes up, it comes back to me in the same motion, the same energy I put in an activity, the same energy comes back. So if I'm going to invest in anger, I should not expect to be happy, and I will go to bed feeling angry, even though I'm going to say I don't like that person. I'll literally be going to bed with that person and waking up with that person and tagging along with that person everywhere that I go, meaning that I love my enemy, and that person doesn't really give me positive energy, doesn't make me happy. So when you're investing, you've got to have the financial muscle, in this case, emotional muscles, to let go the bad negative energy. And it really takes a lot of energy to let go, you know, anger, and you decide, I refuse to be angry, and I choose maybe not to ignore, get the lessons and move on, but just totally release. So yes, when I invest, I want to get back that. Every time I'm about to react, I always ask myself, the value I'm going to get back, is it joy? peace, love, health, especially because when I go to bed angry, I wake up with my lungs and my heart feeling so bad and all that. And again, there's a ripple effect. I have children, so when I'm stressed with work, I pour it down on the children and they don't know why I am angry, and then it affects them. They grow up that way and they'll do the same to their children. It becomes a pattern in their lives. So yes, I always ask myself, what am I getting out of this? Am I gonna be happy? Will I feel loved? Those are the things I ask myself and I go for.
Beautiful, beautiful, Georgina. Thank you. Thank you. That's very beautiful. So generally, that is what investment in this case means. And you know, in every investment, when you put in, you are supposed to earn more in return. You do not want to put in something, an investment, and then your return finally is going to be less. And that's the way the law works. I've started talking about laws. I love laws, by the way. My background is physics, and I understand better in terms of formulas. So if I put in an investment somewhere, I do not want to get less than that. I want to get multiple. And this works in the same way when we're talking about this emotional investment. Think about wealth. There is emotional wealth that each one of us needs to have. And if you are going to have the material wealth, you may need to first have emotional wealth. If you do not have emotional wealth, all the material wealth under the sun will not do you anything. And that's why people get everything on earth, then they realize they are still empty and kill themselves. You see? So we've got to learn, what is it that I am going to put my emotions in, and to what degree? Just like you can divide your investments, this one I'm going to put in chicken, this one I'm going to put in weed. Yeah, if we got Wajakoya, we would start separating where will I put weed, where will I put snakes? Yeah, you want to separate you want to divide your investments depending on what returns you anticipate and something like that. And you engage brain. Now that is it, you engage brain. So this brain thing needs to be taking control, and not just your heart taking control. Between you and your emotions, one is a master and one is a slave. The question is, who is the master and who is the slave? Who are you in that equation? Are you the master or are you the slave? Yeah. So it's good for us to know that thoughts become things. And if we engage our thoughts in those things that are not going to give us as much the reward that we want, we are investing our thoughts and emotions in things that do not that are not going to give us the rewards that we want. We're not going to be happy, we're not going to be joyous and all that. Then we need to find out where else to invest our emotions, or how to take control of that particular emotion, that particular situation. And if we dwell in a certain emotion long enough, it will produce its kind. If you dwell in thinking about accident, and always scared about them, you're going to get them, I guarantee you. Yeah, there is a story told by Trump in one of his books about this person who was always prone to accidents, and finally, and he knew him, by the way, and finally, when he was taken to hospital at some point, those people chose that let's use an ambulance to take him back home when he recovered, so that he may not get an accident again. But guess what? He got involved in an accident while being taken home using the very hospital ambulance. Why? Because it is not the activities that determine our thoughts or our situations. It is our thoughts first that determine all these things. And so it's good to know that if we allow our thoughts to dwell on something that doesn't seem to feel good, that is not likely to reward us positively, we're going to get that. We are actually working for it, working hard. We are investing our all to be able to achieve that particular result. I see Star is saying, whatever things are good, are perfect, whatever things are lovely, you know that quote from the Bible. Yes, think about these things. We set our mind on things that are above. That is it. And so the question is, how then? And Georgina, you've also mentioned something very interesting and very true, that if we are affected emotionally, then the people around us and most of our children are going to pick it, and they will grow in that particular wound, which people call wound. Yes, and they will be bitter people. They will be people who are not emotionally stable. I call that emotional equilibrium. They cannot just attain equilibrium, a point of neutrality and being able to guide their emotions intelligently. No, they pick that, and that becomes more or less like their blueprint along the way, and it affects them the whole of their lives. Yeah. And recently I was discussing this. If you meet today we are talking about, in the society, people are talking about mental health and whatever, and we approach it from that clinical angle and all that. But you see, if we dig deep, we'll realize that all these things are intertwined into how we were brought up, where we live, and all sorts of things. And by the end of the day, that becomes a part of our lives. So it's important for us to get to know what emotions am I investing in what, and therefore what results do I expect. So we invest our emotions wrongly, we are going to get the very wrong results that we are scared about. We invest them rightly, we are going to get the very same results that we are happy about. We are likely to get. And by the way, I love to say that you are better off expecting the best and staying in positive emotion and get something different. At least you will have enjoyed some bit, as opposed to worrying about it and then going to meet it again. So you've suffered twice. Why not suffer, if at all, but just once? Yeah. Yeah. So there is a multiplier effect into that. The question is, as you observe yourself and activities, have you been investing your emotions wisely or unwisely? Now, the next question is, how, therefore, what are some of the tricks? Just like in investment, in other investments, they will tell you, or you will be taught, that you need to know what are the risks involved, what are the opportunities. You calculate, you do your research, you want to know the history of the company that you want to invest in, or that particular business, success rates, all those things. And there are also some degree of emotions attached to them. In this case, what are some of the tricks, so to speak, or some of the activities, some of the steps we can take to ensure that we always attain emotional control, and that we are going to invest wisely our emotions whenever we do? Yes, I know different people have different methodologies. And maybe for those of us in Kenya, you can tell us how you've been able to manage the last 1 week. If you are emotionally attached, how have you been managing? Maybe that is a hint enough. Or any other person, whether you are in Kenya or you are attached to Kenya, you have been putting this into your mind. How have you been managing so that you are not really drowned, or you are really not suffocated into oblivion, desperation?
Okay, good morning. So I wanted to talk about the Holy Spirit being our helper, but maybe someone here can tell me that, okay, what if this person is not born again? What if this person doesn't have the Holy Spirit? But for me, the Holy Spirit has really sorted me out in this. And apart from that, I have not attached emotions to this whole election stuff. But as human beings, God has given us a mind, and he has given us the ability to choose on what we are going to think about. And that is why the Bible says, whatever things are good and perfect, and whatever things, like, think about these things. So you can choose what you decide to think about. And then what are you feeding yourself? I remember a while back we were talking about, I don't really remember, but we were talking in the lines of your thoughts, in the lines of your emotions, or something like that. So choose what you're going to think about, choose what you're feeding yourself. By the way, you can't be, I don't know, on Facebook, on Twitter, following results, seeing maybe your leader of choice is not doing good, or leader of choice is doing good and everything, and then you tell me that you're going to be stable. No. So think on what you are going to watch. Think on what you are going to listen to. Personally, deliberately, I decided I am not going to talk to anyone about politics and about these elections, etc. I am not. Not that I do not have my candidate of choice. I have my candidate of choice. And it's interesting that people who are close to me, we are in different camps, and it's okay with me, but we have all respected the fact that this is who you support, this is who I support, and it's very okay. But here, this is it. We are bigger than all this. We are bigger than these campaigns. We are bigger than the insults that people are throwing everywhere on WhatsApp, status, on Facebook, on Twitter, everywhere. We are bigger than all that. So what are you feeding yourself this time? What are your thought patterns? And are you walking in fear or in faith? Because very many times you can think that you're walking in faith, but actually you're walking in fear. Thank you. Odhiambo.
Thank you. Odhiambo Lale, you.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah. Good. You can put on the video. You are very good in the video. Last week, somebody told me, is that Wajakoya? You had a very nice. Okay, good.
I was baptized, and I was baptized, and it seems like you also want to baptize me again.
Yeah.
This is the original Daniel Tyrant Odhiambo the fifth. Yes, thank you for this very good topic and very timely. What I'd like to say is emotional investment is that I think everything, as we all know, revolves around the mind, the power of the mind. In fact, there's a book I read about over a decade ago, The Power of Positive Thinking, the power of the mind. What has made me, what I have decided to do in the past 1 week were three things. Number one, as a journalist, I still monitor what is happening. But instead of switching the TV on and sitting there feeling like I'm a captive audience, I switch off the TV, I put music, and I read my newspaper. Maybe once in a while, I check on the social media for any updates every 2 hours or so. And meanwhile, I go about with my daily life. Because, like I think I shared in one of my blog stories sometime last week, on analysis of the election and all that stuff, we had over 11,300 candidates who are actual job seekers. We never looked at it that way, but that's what they were. That's what they are. So I said, these people look for jobs. Why should I stop my life? Because these people look for a job. My job or my role as a Kenyan and a patriotic one is to carry out my civic duty, my constitutional right of going to vote. So I go and vote, come back and go about my things. And that has really helped, because Other than that, I found that those who have been interacting with are going through a lot of stress, and they keep on asking me, you know, as a journalist, people think when I'm George, you know everything. I'm telling them I was IEBC know me, but I was given accreditation to go to the tallying centers everywhere except Bomas of Kenya. So what you're asking me about Bomas, I will just be speculating. So why don't I do this? Why don't we just wait for one Wafula Chebukati to talk? Why? What was a message I'm trying to put across is that at times we stress ourselves unnecessarily. Yeah, our emotions go up for unnecessarily because we're trying to solve something that is not within our control. So my attitude is continue with my life, keep like a previous speaker spoke, go about with your life. Well, and you can, of course, curiosity kills a cat, because like even now, just my morning walk in the estate here, I see all the cars are parked. You ask yourself, who is now wearing a tie like OPP and and a suit and is in the office? Yeah, when all these cars are out here. But that one is just, I think, Darwin's theory of survival. People are feeling more comfortable being in their cocoons than being out there. But I think the most important thing for us is the power of the mind. We must control it, because if we don't, like some previous speaker also talked about the Holy Spirit and God in our lives, the devil will definitely take advantage. And you know, I will tell you, all these theories will be there, of this and that and the negative stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I love that. I love that. Yeah, one, you told us, keep engaging in your daily affairs. You find a way to distract yourself from thinking only that which is not helping you, thinking just the negative. There is that power in your thinking, and thoughts become things. That is a reality. Thoughts become realities. In fact, in physics, I don't know how many of you are physicists, but in physics, at another level, we talk about the fifth state of matter. Yeah. Traditionally, we know about the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. But then we can move into another state of matter, which they call plasma, and then yet another, which is energy. And you realize that when you engage that energy, it is now another level, another state of matter. It ends up creating things. And that is a level where people now talk about metaphysics. So some of the formulas, in the interest of time, we are going to have more discussion. Some of the ideas that I've always used is, I love to use the word, always leave some room for shock absorbers. It helps you. And this comes when you think of all the possibilities. If this one comes out, how would it be to me? How would it? Well, I would be sad, but how will that affect my life? Will it change? Will what happens? Will what comes out alter my living in any way? And the reasoning is, what if the other people are right? Yeah, that would be great. And if they get it, but what if they are wrong? It would be good for them to be served their own medicine so that they know they were not right. You see, I love looking at things like that. What if they are wrong? That would be good. They would be able to prove that ideally they were on the wrong side. You see, so because if we are talking about leadership, and by the way, you cannot become a great leader if you do not know how to well invest your emotions. When you are a leader, people literally read your mood and they behave according to your mood. When people see their leader stressed, they will instantly be stressed. And that's why, as a leader, you need to always wear a cheerful face when you're with your people. It's just like if you have children and you look sad. That's what Georgina was telling us. They will pick it. They will pick it because you are the symbol of power or authority or all that they want. When they see you, I love to give example. I've given this example many times. If you are in your house, you are the head of your house, and then some people come banging at the door. Yeah, open, 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 and you run away and you hide. What do you think your children will be doing thereafter? They will think they are finished. And that is literally what happens when you as a leader at the head of your people, you seem stressed. You will not radiate hope. The last couple of days, I've really learned that people need hope. People cannot live without hope. They lose everything. They lose appetite. They lose their weight. I'm sure by the end of this, some people will have lost some kilos. You see, so you can reason it out. The other thing is like I'd said, why not choose what is beneficial to you? First of all, it said love your neighbor as yourself. So you first of all start by loving yourself. Yes. How does this help me? If I dwell in this thought, it won't help me. Therefore, I need to dwell in that which is positive. And if it becomes fine, if it doesn't, well, at least I enjoyed my imagination. Another way is choose to do something that is making you happy. Yeah, enough of us have gotten an opportunity to watch more videos than before, because you do not want to be tracking news every minute and even affecting the family with emotions. So you want people to be protected. When you are protecting people's emotions, you are even doing much better for them than somebody who is giving them money or something. You want to shield them from negative emotions. So when you engage, when you put in some other family activities, for example, or if you are in an office, you can have some other activities that bring people together and make them have fun. They get away from that distraction. In fact, some people get into alcoholism and drugs because they want to forget. But why? There are enough positive things you can do. And then there is this prayer, Olale, you've just talked about what we cannot do anything about. You see, God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. By the way, the moment we learn that every time I put in a positive emotion, I am depositing into my emotional account. When I am putting in a negative emotion, I am withdrawing from my emotional account. And having a negative emotional account is generally having a negative mindset. And you can be sure that ultimately you're going to sink into depression. You're going to sink into some situation you do not want to reach. And coming out of that is a much bigger problem than getting in. You see, so we need to be wise enough or intelligent enough to know and to catch ourselves on the wrong path so that we are able to retreat. Yeah, on Saturday, I was attending a recollection. We call them recollections, but then they are also called retreats. But I'm told retreats are those ones that take a couple of days, not one day, not a couple of hours. You take back, you retreat, you're going back to yourself. You're reflecting and thinking about yourself, your life, maybe your spirituality, or depending on what the objective of the retreat. So you take a retreat and listen to yourself, collect your thoughts, and find out which direction is most appropriate. You see, so those are some of the things. Now there is one thing I love to say, and I learned it from another speaker, that sometimes let what is frustrating you fascinate you. Yes, if it is frustrating you, why can't you get fascinated instead of getting frustrated? Find something to laugh about, find something to laugh at yourself. Yeah? If you're getting frustrated, instead of getting frustrated, get fascinated.
Rita, Robert,
Odhiambo, you are. Yeah. And then the other thing I'd learned in life is that there is always something good in everything you see. There is always something good in everything you see. Whatever you're seeing may not be good or may not look good, but there is always something good in everything you see. Things don't always seem the way you see them. They don't always, they are not always the way you see them. There is always something good in everything you see. And if we choose to mind that, we could actually end up with a very positive experience. And this, out of my reflection on Saturday, I learned, or it dawned on me, that, for example, I was told, we were in a group. One of us was a practicing counselor, and she was saying, like, now lots of candidates will come to me, the people who've lost, because like some of them are already very much depressed. They've lost the money, they've lost the time, they're disappointed, and their life is very distasteful. You see, so what we can always do is we try to look for what is positive, what am I able to learn out of this, what are the lessons, and how can they make my life better for tomorrow. Because we are told, people say experience is the best teacher, but the reality is that experience is not really the best teacher, because you will be punished first and then lessons, if at all, later. Many of us will go through trouble, but we don't end up with the lessons that we need to get out of it. So let's let's be people who are always conscious about whether we are investing or we are withdrawing, whether we are doing it wisely or just doing it haphazardly, or are we the masters or are we the slaves in this emotional thing? Yes, some additional comments. I see a lot of people have written something. For every action force, yes, there in this case, in nature, it is, yes, yes. You can say that, Georgina. Yeah, I love that angle. I'm a physicist, I told you. There is always a reaction, equal and opposite. In this case, it can be compounded because there is what we call multiplier. Yeah, a multiplier. There are devices we call multipliers. Or in electronics, this is part of electronics, but in electronics, we have what we call transistors. So you put in some voltage, but passing through a transistor, it's going to be magnified to some level. You see, there is what we call the gain. So you will not necessarily just get what you put in, but you will get, or at the opposite of that, you will get more of what you put in. Yes, you'd like to say something about the same? And somebody else would like to make a comment on how you take care of your emotional investment?
Otieno, OPP.
Yes, yes, Mel.
If I may go deeper than emotions,
Yes,
emotions are seated in the soul.
yes.
In the soul, and what psychologists would call the subconscious. And they result from external events, which are either ongoing or have taken place in the past. Now, these events cause the mind to give them a meaning, okay? And that meaning now translates into an emotion, and then into a belief, and then into an action. So I believe it is possible to reframe any situation, any person to whom you have given a meaning. And I want to apologize to Odhiambo Lale, because we have a culture of mindless activity, okay, which has been promoted by the media, by the cinema industry, and even the music industry, the entertainment industry. So we are engaged in mindless activity, and we absorb what other people are feeling around us, what they are saying, and we give meaning to all of these things because we are not mindful. Like when Odhiambo Lale is walking around in his neighborhood, he is mindful. His mind is concentrated on his next step, on the cars which are parked inside those compounds, on the people who are wearing ties or who are not wearing. So at a time like this, we need to put things in their proper context. We have heard about people committing suicide because of a football match in this very country, because they have attached too much meaning to the English Premier League, ignoring a local league. For example, a local match between Kibra Boys and Madara United. So it's just about attaching a different sort of meaning. This is a small event. Your life will go on. Okay, CBC is not changing overnight, right? Just because we will have a new president. We are not going to have just one permit in Nairobi County overnight. It's a process. We are just a small part of the cog. We are a small part of that wheel. So I think I want to agree with Odhiambo Olale that we need to be mindful when carrying out our daily duties. We need to invest our emotions in the people who need them the most. That is our families and our communities. We need to show them that we are happy, as you said. We need to show them that we are calm. But as I said, we have been sucked in to this mass hysteria, which is on social media, which you cannot escape from, which is on the media. In fact, in this particular election, the media houses have really let us down. And with those few remarks on OPP, I rest my case.
Thank you. I love that you brought in the angle of we are ardent consumers of people's opinions, and we tend to pick those opinions to run our lives. And you know, whoever, and you better remember this, if you will forget anything, I said two most important things. One is you and your emotions. One is a slave. One is a master. Now remember that whoever can manage your emotions, that person rules you. That person rules your life. If I will be in a position to manage your emotions the way I wish, then I will be able to rule you. And that is something you want to be worried about. Don't just pick people's opinions as they are. You've talked about meaning. What meaning do we attach to it? It's good for us to know that your life doesn't change if you don't change. Your life only changes. And that should be our topic in the coming weeks about personal development. Your life only changes if you change. I loved to give the example of, for example, during Kibaki's time, you realize that some people were grumbling the whole 10 years. But some people were minding their businesses and moving on. And you realize that within 10 years, they make a big difference in their lives, while the other people were down and retrogressing. We need to be aware that no president, no authority somewhere is going to make a positive difference in my life. The journey for the Israelites, they were being led by God in the desert, but they were still grumbling and they died in the desert. So it is something you need to know. Oh, there is something I was talking about, which I think I lost that track. That one thing I discovered is, if you get a leader that you really did not wish to get, maybe as spiritual people, Melvin is brought to the spiritual angle. I don't like speaking spirituality. I don't consider myself a big authority in that. But as spiritual people, we need to put them into prayer. Maybe that habit that we don't like in them, we can pray for them that they may change it. Because as Christians, by the way, one of our biggest obligations is to pray for our leaders, if you didn't know. So there is that element of picking people's opinions and letting them rule our lives. So why can't we be in charge? I'd like to finish with this story, then we can close. And this is when I learned about emotional intelligence, if you want to know. I did not know about that terminology, but I learned, I started learning leadership when I was pretty young, I think under 10. And at this time, I was in class 7. And we were sailing, we were going for a funeral. My grandma had died. So I was with my younger brother. And he was pretty small. I was the only one who knew how to swim. Those days and where we were living, you could only travel using a boat to where we wanted to go. And I'd never crossed the lake using a boat. In that particular part of the world, by the way, people don't like vehicles. They only use boats. They believe boats are much safer than vehicles. And I understood them, because they say if you get an accident, you're involved in an accident while on a road, then you are likely to be injured if you are not dead. But if you get an accident, you're in a boat, there are only two possibilities. You are either dead completely or completely alive. So they better go for that. You see? So on our journey back, the tide was really big. If you've read the story in the Acts of Apostles about Paul crossing with this way as a prisoner, crossing with these soldiers to the other side, Mellitus, you will be able to understand what I went through. It was serious. And the police officers, I could see that there is going to be trouble. The police officers were just counting people, and my thought was, they are just counting people to report if something happens, that there were this number of people in the boat, but this boat was getting overloaded. And it was around 3 p.m. It was a serious thing. So I was here with my brother. He was seated next to me. In a boats like the ones we were using, there are no roofs. Yeah, you touch water on this side and you touch water on this side. There were very many of us. So at some point, I kept moving, and I was imagining, if something happens, how will I take care of this boy? That was my biggest worry. Personally, I know there was a possibility of surviving because I can swim, not necessarily to the shore, but maybe to the boat, because the boats don't sink. They always overturn and people are thrown away. So if you are lucky, you may be able to swim back and climb it so that you are seated on it. And if no sea animal grabs you, you'll always be safe, and somebody else will come to your rescue. But this was the case. Well, unless there are enough people who come and climb in and they overpower it. But this was the case. I was imagining this boy, this little boy, his all hope is on me. And if he sees me panicking, he will panic. Now, this is what happened, that it reached a point where people were praying and making noise and singing and all sorts of praises. Yeah. But I chose to stay calm, just calm, and just counting, okay, how far are we from? When we reach the middle, now you cannot see this end where you are coming from. You can't see where you're going. You just trust you'll be there. Water is splashing inside us. We try to cover ourselves with what they call cape, right? Some big polythene. And we went through it. It was very tense. It was risky. And there was no surety that we would reach the other side. I kept calm. And I realized that staying calm is good enough for people you are leading. And for that reason, my little brother did not panic. To him, he was just looking at me. Am I panicking? Am I still composed? That was it. You see, and this boat, just before we could reach the other side, though that was not our destination shore, it split and we had to get into water, but we were almost at the shore. So we just walked in. But it was not a pleasant thing. Now, there is nothing worse, in my view, that I can go through that is worse than that. I've said many other times as a fisherman, and I know that I actually relate with also the story in the Bible when Jesus was seemingly sleeping, not caring. Don't you care that we are dying? So such situations can give you an experience. And this political situation, if you don't take care, can be one such big, long sailing where you're never sure about the end. And there are 4 topics that are usually very emotional. I think 4 or 3. One is money. Money subject. The moment it's brought in, it becomes very emotional and contentious, and lots of people get into trouble with that, taking their sides, and that is what breaks families. Yeah. Another one is money, is politics, and another one is religion. So always be, if you are going to be tolerant enough, if you are going to be wise enough as you relate with people, in order not to create conflict, just accept that we are all different and we are entitled to our opinion, and we don't always have to win an argument. And maybe if we are wrong, we will learn. If the other person, if we go the other way, if we are right and it goes the other way, still they will learn from their own mistakes, if at all they will. Thank you all. And I'd like to stop there unless there is a question. Somebody has a question, a comment? We are past time, 4 minutes after the time.
OPP, I think I
Any
just
question? Yes.
wanted to comment and say that just like in investment and money, if you have money that is not being used, it will be spent haphazardly. And as the Bible says that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. If your mind is idle, then it will be swayed here and there, here and there. So don't let your mind be on idle mode. Just keep investing in yourself emotionally, keep investing in yourself from whatever angle you want to invest in yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you must engage your mind, and that's why we were talking about engagement activity. And I see Lillian has written something there very good. Yes, it starts with self-awareness. You better know what magnitude, how much can you carry. Don't carry more than you can, your capacity. Self-awareness is a big thing, and that's actually where it starts. Thank you. That is Lillian all the way from, is it Georgia? No, I'm forgetting your state nowadays, but somewhere in the Americas. Yes. So we need to read that example. Some people are very good at handling complex emotional situations. Yes, Lillian, you can say what you're saying. It's night, eh?
Yeah, it's nighttime here. It's 11:20, so my kids went to bed early and I'm here. Anyway, real quick, I think I was just sharing that, responding to some of those, it's very important to also know your mental tenacity. Is that what they call it? Like, you have to know how strong you are mentally or emotionally when you're dealing with certain situations. And sometimes even when you are, like now with politics, I think, was it Melvin or someone who was talking about like during sports, sometimes when people are so passionate and they commit suicide, and many times you find there are other things that were going on in their life, but then they try to distract themselves, but then they got so attached to the soccer and then it doesn't go their way. So again, knowing like the balance of what things are going on in life and things like that, I think is very important. Yeah, that's all I wanted to share, but thank you for a great presentation.
Great. Yes, we need to know our emotional equilibrium. Where can we strike the balance? Thank you very much. Yes, I think we can close it there.